All right, everybody, here's the second edition of Talking to Tomcat Guys on cream-colored couches at the Nugget. First episode was yesterday with Bio. So we're here with my good friend, Rear Admiral Mike Manazir, call sign Nasty. So first question that my audience will want to know, how did you get your call sign?
I can tell you the unclassified version.
Yeah, tell me the unclassified version.
Yeah, that's probably a better idea. and Kelly was there, my wife. Okay. Kelly, of 40 years plus, was at the O Club in Kingsville when I was a student.
So you're going way back. You're going pre-fighter days.
Yeah, and one of the instructors who was a real jokester, I was going by Stash because I had a mustache, and it was like, Stash, okay, whatever. You just put it on the whiteboard, right? And he's like, Stash. And then one day he's like, we're sitting down to do a hop, real jokester, and he's like, your name's like, you're like Menage a Trois. And so I think that's your call sign. And so dutifully, I went to the PR shop. You know, you could stitch up those or emboss those black name tags we used to have on our flight suits, and Menage a Trois.
Right. That's too many syllables. I know. For starters.
So too many syllables. So they'd put Trois on the whiteboard.
Okay.
So all right, Trois. It's like, all right, whatever. And the call sign thing, I didn't like want one or anything, just whatever. And so we're at the O Club like that Friday night, having free poo-poos and beers from guys getting winged, and that's what we ate in those days. And Kelly and I lived in this apartment right outside the gate, so we were over there getting our free Friday dinner and drinks. And we're standing in a circle with a bunch of bubbas, and this girl comes up. And Kelly tells me that it was actually her boss who she had brought to the O Club for the first time. Worked in this little clothing store, and she was a pretty fetching girl, and she was always looking, hey, I need somebody like Mike. And so that she'd come over to the O Club. So Kelly said, well, I'd take you to the O Club. She says it was that girl. Anyway, some woman who I don't really know very much, or relatively young girl, comes up with a circle of us, and we're all standing in a circle drinking. And she's doing the call sign thing all of a sudden. So what's this call sign thing? And she's going around the circle. And there's, somebody named Berg, and his call sign's Ice, and then there gets around, and this other call sign. And Keith Dale was in my, he's an F-14 guy, now flies for
Is that Kraut's brother?
It's Kraut's brother.
Okay.
Yep.
Because I flew with Kraut a bunch.
Yeah.
When he was XO and I was.
So Kid Dale was in my graduating class in VT 21, and we got our wings in the same day in April of '83. Anyway, standing there, he's Kid Dale. So she goes, okay, Kid. Okay, look like a kid, really young looking face. Guy, a Marine standing next to me, Mike Matheny, call sign Martini. He says Martini, okay, Martini. And then she gets to me and she goes, Menage, that's nasty. Just like that. Okay. And Martini goes, nasty, that's a call sign, that's it. And so the next day, I went down and got that on my name tag, nasty, and it got put up on the board, and they were like, okay, that's kind of funny. All right. And that actually stayed all the way through winging, all the way into Miramar, and get to the rag, and okay, nasty, call sign, and I didn't come in and go, my call sign's this highfalutin thing, so that somebody had to change it. And I never did anything to earn another one. Okay. So nasty stayed, right? And of course, now in my current role in industry, it's so funny because people who know me in the company will say, well, as Nasty just said, and it like knocks the rest of the room back. And then people come up and go, are we allowed to call you Nasty? It's kind of bad. So the connotation of the call sign is really bad. Now, sometimes I can play that up, right?
Right,
so,
yeah.
Oh, you must, I can't tell you. It's actually classified. So anyway, that's how I got it. It's the silliest, beginning of a story, but I never did anything to change it.
No, it's fantastic. Yeah. So, you were a year ahead of me at the academy. Did you know you wanted fighters? Was the Tomcat like me, saw, there on Main Street, saw the Final Countdown? It was like, that's the airplane I want to eventually wind up in. Was it that defined for you, or did things just evolve? Yeah,
no, it was actually defined, and who knows why, we get a vision of something and we follow that vision and whatever it takes to get to that point. So mine evolved. I want to go to Naval Academy. My dad went, he was class of 1958. I heard Academy stories for years, just went right over the top. So in 8th grade, we were...
Was he an aviator?
No, he's a Marine ground.
Okay.
Marine ground. Okay. And this is part of the story, the Marine part of the story.
Okay.
So in 8th grade, we went to a Navy Georgia Tech football game at Georgia Tech. And he took us down there. We were stationed in Beaufort at the time, at the Marine Corps Air Station there, and we went to the game. And we sat on the bleachers, and I'm sitting there, and the mids marched on, like, you know, just like everybody sees in Army Navy. And I went, that's it. That's it. I want to be one of those guys. I mean, it was like, bing!
Yeah.
And so that Monday, I went to the guidance counselor in my junior high school, you know, 8th grade, and I said, I'm going to the Naval Academy. What do I have to do? And she took out a piece of paper and set it on the side, 9.5 or 8.5 by 11, 4 columns, all of the courses, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. You take these courses, and you'll get to the Naval Academy. And I went to 4 different high schools, and every high school I went to, I took this piece of paper in and said, I'm going to the Naval Academy, I need to take these courses. And why are you going to the Naval Academy? I mean, well, I'm going to fly, of course. I'm going to fly. And I had this thing in my head, and my parents have told me, like when I was 6, I talked about flying, and I don't remember that part, but for some reason, I'm going to the Naval Academy to go fly. And so that's what that vision was. And then as I went through the academy, when I got there, because of my experience with my father and the experience on Marine Corps air stations, I was going to be a Marine aviator. Love the Marines, still love the Marines. I'm going to go be a Marine aviator. So we go down to Quantico for the training, you know, second class summer training, right?
Procurement, yeah.
And so for your audience, the procurement, we go down and you get to train, you get to see a week of training at Pensacola for aviation, Dam Neck, Virginia for surface, Groton, Connecticut for subs, and then Quantico for the Marines. So we go run around the Marines. I loved it, you know, throw around the dirt, Marine aviator. And I'll tell you, I got to see some Navy aviators. Oh, sloppy, long hair, long mustaches, and the Marines, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah,
it's like, I want to be one of those guys, right? I don't fly fighters. I'm going to fly Marine fighters. I go down to Quantico, we go to Pro-Tramet, and we had that little lecture where, okay, we're going to tell you in the Marine Corps, here's how the aviators go, here's the tankers, here's the infantry guys. So they sequestered us all off with our various colonels. They're going to tell us what it's like in the Marine Corps for the thing we want to go do. And so we go to the base theater, all the aviators, this big, tall Marine stands up on the stage, and he says, okay, so you guys come down here, you come to the basic school, we teach all, you know, Marine officers to be Marines first, and then if we have a slot to go to flight school, then, you know, you can select for one of those slots. I'm like, stick my hand up. Yes, midshipman. Colonel, did you say we go to basic school, and then if you have a slot, then we can select a slot? And he goes, that's right, midshipman. The needs of Marine Corps take precedence. Right then and there,
But that also wasn't true, right? Marine Air usually had about, you know, 25, 30 aviation guarantees going into TPS.
Whatever it was in the Marine Corps, I all of a sudden was like, okay, Navy Air. I went back home, selected Navy Air, and went. And when I went down to flight school, you know, final countdown, saw Tomcats, and like, I'm gonna fly Tomcats. I stuck at the beginning of primary. When we first got our helmets issued and you had to tape up your own helmet, I stuck a silhouette of a Tomcat on the side of my helmet.
See, that's gutsy as a conehead.
Big time, right? Gutsy. Like, who are you to think you're going to do that? Not kidding. Yes. Stuck that thing on there.
Like it.
I went all the way through flight school, you know, and I had a vision. I went to the academy. I got there. I want to fly Tomcats, and I had that North Star out in front of me. And I tell people all the time, you want to have that North Star. Where do you want to go? And no kidding, I went through and I did everything possible to be the best I could in the airplane. And the week I got my wings, 15th of April, 1983, they had a Tomcat slot at Miramar. So I'll take that slot. And actually, that was the first time they'd ever offered the Hornet to a Nugget.
Wow. Okay.
And so Kid Dale took that one. He was number 2 in the week. Pig Checchio he graduated down from Meridian. He was there. He took Tomcats East.
Okay.
And he was on the East Coast. And I took the West Coast thing. So I ended up in Tomcats on the West Coast.
So let's start with maybe your worst day. Or your most, if somebody asks you, what's your most memorable flight? This probably would be in top 3.
It's pretty close, yeah.
Right, so as we're saying, we talked to Slammer last year. So talk to us about your recollection of how that all went down.
So I have pretty good recollection of the thing. And it's funny what we perceive. And so it was cool to listen to Slammer talk to you about his perceptions back there. So as Slammer told your audience here during your discussion, we were on that flip-flop hop. You know, I was teaching him how to maneuver the F-14, and then the idea was we go back and he does everything, and I'm in the back seat. So he's in the back seat, I'm in the front seat.
So just as a reminder, the FAM-1 Or is this the tactics one?
It's the tactics one.
Yeah, so it's a pilot instead of pilot Rio. And so the instructor pilot demos zero airspeed departures and some other stuff, go back, gas up, and then the student is in the front seat. So.
Yep. And typically, it's a source of terror when you're in the back seat and he's in the front seat.
Welcome to my life.
Yeah, that's right. I was going to say, just like senior Rios who fly around with nuggets, like idiots like me in the front. But yeah, so we go out to do the zero airspeed thing, and I had told Slammer in the brief, we're going to do the zero airspeed thing, and the reason you get up there is confidence building and let the airplane flip around. But I had been taught by an instructor way back when I was a student named Bull Bullard that you can take the airplane up and about just before 100 knots, you push the stick forward and it'll go like that.
Okay.
And use that. And when I went to 51, and in fact in some of the Tomcat Top Gun fights, I used that and it worked great. Block 90 airplanes. The ones we jumped out of was a Block 135, and Spook Yakeley told me later, change in center of gravity, the 135s won't do that.
What changed in the center of gravity?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
But when you change different models, things change in the design of the airplanes. And so, anyway, the thing that I briefed the Slammer didn't work. And the briefing was, we're going to go up, and I'm going to show you this tactical thing because you can go up with not enough airspeed to go over the top, and on purpose shove the stick forward, and the airplane will pirouette in the vertical. You let it go for a minute, handful of stick, and now you're up here. And the bad guy, usually that slow, he's also as slow as you. Okay, he's gonna get you, and you get right here, and then you flip it over, and it worked great. So I'm briefing Slammer. There's actually a tactical use of this zero airspeed 90-degree up thing. So we go up the first time, and I can't get it to do this, and so we're now wings level, headed back in, south 16,000 feet south of San Clemente Island, and fateful question. Hey Slammer, anything else you want to see? 6,600 pounds of gas. Anything else you want to see before we go do the flip hop so you understand what we're going to do? And he goes, yeah, I want you to do that vertical airspeed thing. And so, okay, lock a harness, up we go, military power straight up, and I mean, we're bullseye. I get this thing absolutely just pointed straight up. And I'm shoving on the stick, dancing on the rudder, everything to get this thing to go over. I can't get it to go over. Say at 100 knots, you're supposed to let go of the controls. I don't even let go of the controls. I'm like, come on, I know you're going to go. Maybe it'll just do it, right? And all of a sudden, bang, the left engine stalled. Big boom, like whoa. And it felt like it was like right there. Big yellow fireball, airplane starts to come off. It's already sliding backwards, so it's coming down, coming over as you're used to, and it's sliding off like that with the right engine at full power. So what's the bull face for an engine stall? It doesn't say what parameters it is. You pull both throttles idle. So I'm pull both throttles idle, bang, right engine goes. So he's, again, big fireball out the front, bull stall over temps. And
immediately into
this violent octaflugeron. I mean, really violent, because I kept it straight up, and we came down straight down for a ways before the left engine stalled. And so now we got this thing going hard. And so, okay, let go of everything, here it is. Both engines are stalled. I am intentionally don't even shut down one engine because I've still got hydraulics, and I want to be able to recover the airplane.
Okay.
And so I figure the engines are probably cooked, but I keep them going, flipping around. Every time the nose came through the bottom, the altimeter's unwinding like a clock. And so I look at the turn needle. I think it's pegged to the left. So, and the turn needle in the front seat, it'd take a little while. It's a little mechanical instrument that tells you which way the airplane's turning, holdover from kind of the non-digital airplanes. But you could watch it in the gyrations, and it would kind of flip. It would take a little while, like a flip over at turn rate, and then would flip the other side. And so in my retrospective, I think I looked at it when it was over on the side and didn't wait long enough for it to come back this way. Look, the AOA, it's pegged white the whole way up, indicating stalled AOA. And the airspeed is definitely stalled. And so I recollect all these, okay, we're going, and it's generally going left.
But not in a flat spin.
Not in a flat spin. Okay. It's still in the post-stall gyrations, but violent as hell, and and generally going that way.
Okay.
And a bunch of different things, to the point where if you were having a conversation with a guy in a back seat, like if you were riding with me you would feel like what regime we're in, and you'd be going, okay, show me your hands, neutralize, we're still in, what's your airspeed, what's your turn needle? Back in the Phantom, their first bold phase for that was wind the clock, because they didn't want you to do anything.
Yeah, do nothing.
Nothing.
Don't do nothing. Yeah.
So I'm looking, first breakdown in the ability of 2 crew members to do that is Sam's a pilot. He's thinking like a pilot. We don't have somebody in the back as a Rio instructor going, or as a pilot in the back going, show me your hands, altitude, airspeed, angle of attack.
Right.
Yeah. So he's basically he's reading altitudes, and we're coming down like a rock. And I'm going, both engines are stalled. We're coming down like a rock. I'm running out of altitude to get this thing at 300 knots and go to accelerate it. So I go, okay, time to put controls in. I had just reviewed a training film from a test pilot named Baker, who they had gotten. We'd lost so many airplanes with flat spins. Said once you get that established turn rate, stick full into and after and rudder opposite, right now. Boom, boom. Okay, and once you see the turn rate start, and there was a video of it. They would start up at 30,000 feet, go, you get this thing, start the yaw rate, get it going like that, spin arrow comes on, stick immediately aft, and the airplane would come out. Spin arrow goes away, you let go of the airplane. That training got embedded as my first step, which actually came out in the MIR and said, hey, get rid of that training because it's negative training.
Yeah.
So we get to this point, I'm looking at things by myself. Sam's back there calling out altitudes, getting himself locked in the harness, and he's watching. He's perceiving we're in a flat spin because the airplane is flipping around, but it generally is doing this because just the way it started.
And so is this a function of your pro spin controls at that time?
Not yet.
Okay.
So we get in this thing and I go, I got to recover this airplane. And so I do stick full aft and into and rudder opposite. And the position the airplane was in, what that did was it stabilized the airplane in a flat spin, but not the where it's 7 G's eyeballs out. But basically I held in pro spin controls.
Okay.
And from Slammer's perspective in the back, as he reports, the airplane's going around. He does not know that I put in controls. And I don't think I ever said to him, okay, I'm stick aft and into, I'm rudder opposite. If I did, it didn't register with him.
Okay.
Because he's calling altitudes. And so we go whipping by 10,000 feet and it ain't coming out. And I can't figure it out. And when I let go of the controls, the airplane went even more violently. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to keep working on this. And actually the more violently it was, the airplane was trying to fly.
Oh.
It was trying to fly.
Okay.
And when you're out there and you're on a spin hop and you're with the right people, like there's an instructor in the back, and you're going, okay, we're gonna see this, we're gonna see that. Okay, watch how this happens. Notice how it does that. That's itself trying to recover itself. Oh, okay. And I think the reason that I got myself in that mental attitude is because both engines are stalled. I need to get it pointed to the ground. I need to work on getting it pointed to the ground right now. And it ain't doing it by itself, so I'm gonna help it. That's what I told the FNAP. Told him, hey, this is what I did. Anyway, we get to 10,000 feet, go right through it. And Slammer's 10,000, didn't say a word. And actually in my head, I'm going, somebody's gonna recover this airplane and we're gonna fly home, but I don't know what I'm doing. And so about a second later, we're at 8,000. And I don't have the airplane. I have no idea what to do. I had tried, Chuck Yeager's A, B, and C, and it didn't work, nothing was working. And who knows? If I'd have ever let the thing go and it had gone like that, would I have been able to get one of those engines restarted? I don't know. And then flown back home. Lots of guys in the aftermath of it said they used to lose engines all the time in the zero airspeed thing. I had lost one before, but it recovered itself. It's like, and we come out, let it go. Okay, now with both of them, things got me thinking faster than what's going on. 8,000 feet, nope, eject. And
but Slammer said at one point about between 10 and 8, he thought the nose was starting to. And did he actually say hold it, or was there like?
No, it wasn't a hold
yet,
it, but he's the nose is coming down here.
So he thought the AOA had broken, and now
yes, and that I think was a time where I actually transitioned out of the controls.
Okay.
and then the thing was violently went off to the left.
Okay.
And my interpretation, I mean, really violently.
In hindsight, the airplane was recovering, but it felt like you'd made it worse.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly right. And that's the same, we had the same perception between 10 and 8. And so I have to be patient here. We're in a flat spin. We're unrecovered. I need to get this airplane to brake, and it's taken a long time. All these wrong conclusions, like, were guiding my actions. And probably both engines stalling, something I'd never seen, was kind of a sense of urgency that was imparted in this thing. So
what do you remember about the ejection? Because Slammer was knocked out.
Yeah.
And he does that. It fixed my back problem, which the folks really got a kick
hilarious.
out of. So what do you remember?
So this is really cool about the ejection. So I take the upper face curtain and I pull it down to my chest.
So you initiated ejection.
So interesting. As I'm pulling this thing down through the loops, I see the canopy go boom, and it's about 8 feet away. And you can hang on to the canopy bow there, and it looked like it was 8 feet away. That's pretty cool. So then now the face curtain's all the way to my chest. I'm sitting there like nothing happened, and then ow, my back hurt really bad. We pop out, boom, boom, boom. I see the chute, my boots, the airplane, end up in the chute. What had happened is, I said eject, eject, eject. Slammer is doing the flat spin procedures. First thing is Rio canopy jettison. So when I saw it come off, he had pulled the canopy jettison handle as I was pulling the face curtain.
Okay.
He's reaching down to pull his lower face curtain, and I ejected him. Because
I guess he was looking down to try to find it, right? Okay.
He's looking down, put his head down, and he's out.
Yeah.
And he ends up in the chute. That first time I look at him, we're in the chute, and I look over at Slammer, and he looks like he's dead. I go, I've killed him. Because he's got his head down, his arms are hanging down, just like Goose in the movie, and I'm like, oh my God, I've killed him. Okay, what do I need to do? Wow, I started looking around. Next time I looked at him, which was not too much longer later, he looks like a freaking parachute training video. Slammer's perfect anyway. So he's like, hands are up, he's got his feet out, he's got the four-line release is done. Well, I get to that in a second. Raft is out, and he looks like a model. And it didn't run through my head, well, I didn't kill him, but anyway, it's like, okay, he's doing good over there. Oh, I need to do all that stuff. So I'm sitting there going, all right, well, I didn't have any gloves on, so all right, inflate. So I inflate the LPA. And you remember in the pool, one of those things kind of like, okay, you kind of flow in there. Oh no, these things, boom! I mean, like rocks. Oh. And now I'm looking up like this going, God, I can't look at anything. And they're really blown up. And I'm stuck here. All I can do is check the canopy because that's all I was looking at. So I rotate the mat. I can't get my face down. So I pull the mask off, and my helmet comes off. The mask goes down. The helmet goes over the back of the.
When you undid your mask, your helmet came off.
Helmet came off.
Yeah. Okay.
The whole thing rotated off because I'm just parked. I said, okay, now I can see. Now I'm bareheaded. I go to release my raft, and I grab the little handle, on the sink vent. It just comes right off. Well, I wonder if my raft is out. And I'm trying to see if my raft is out. I'm rocking around, looking around these lobes that are this big, blown up. I snap them together. I didn't think about snapping and looking like that, but all of a sudden I'm very concerned about my raft being deployed. Because obviously there's sharks down there and I'm gonna be eaten, so I need to get in a raft, right? So I kind of look down at it and I can't figure it out. So I go, I know what, I'll get Sam to tell me the raft is out. And so I start screaming at him, Sam!
So you guys are close enough that you thought he could hear you?
Yeah, close enough I thought he could hear me. So he's about probably 100 yards away. Sam! He finally hears something, he looks over at me, and I'm like, Dad, like that. And he reaches up, he undoes the four-line release, or if he had it already undone, he turned towards me. I grabbed mine, undid mine, I turned towards him. You'll remember that four-line release pops the panels in the back so that the parachute doesn't oscillate. It also gives you about 4 knots of forward motion.
Okay.
He does the same thing, we're pointing each other. We're now doing 8 knots towards each other. It becomes very apparent we're gonna hit.
Not good.
In the air.
Good.
It's like, no. And I swear to God that the parachutes must have brushed each other on the way by. Because we were that close. We go by like this, like, okay, let's stay apart from each other. Come down, here comes the water, and hit the water. It's beautiful outside. Blue day, this gorgeous day. And boots hit the water, undo the coax, but boom, parachute comes down in front of me. There's my helmet. I start to swim away. I have a line around my leg. I'm like, I got to get the line off. So I pull the line off, and parachute.
So your training kicks into place.
Yeah, training kicks in, in the water.
Yeah.
And an E2 all of a sudden goes over. I'm like, whoa, E2, So I get up in my raft. I do that little flip. I get up in my raft, flip around like we always did with Jim. And of course, half the people can't do it. So the E2 reports back. When I start talking, by the way, I say, 455 Alpha up on guard. I'm fine. Blah blah blah. And the report comes back from the E2 that one crew member is in good condition, the other crew member is in fair condition. Because Slammer, when they went over the top, he didn't flip himself over in the raft. He's a surfer, so he laid face down on his raft and he's paddling over on his raft.
Okay.
And so they see me sitting up and they see another guy who's prone on his raft. So he's the fair guy, but he's swimming in this water like a surfer going, that was awesome, oh my God, that was so cool. And he's got this big grin on his face, paddling over. So I start paddling over him and I go, oh no, sharks. And I put my arms so hey, he can get bit, I'm not gonna get bit. And so we hook up together, and the last piece of this story is we hook up together, we're on opposite things like this, and we're riding him down these kind of 4-foot swells, very gentle swell. And all I'm thinking about is sharks. I mean, I'm just like, okay, I heard great stories of a VF-31 ejection that sharks were looking at these guys with their eyeballs and sharks everywhere, and I'm looking for sharks. We come up on top of the crest, and there's this freaking monster right there. And there's a big nose, a fin, long back, and a fin over here, and then we drop down on the trough. I'm like,
oh, jeez.
Come back up in it. It's the airplane. So the jet had pancaked in the water, left this huge area of bubbles that I thought was a reef with sharks on it. Got away from the bubbles, pancaked in the water, and then come back up due to all the air in the airplane and floated on the top for just a little bit. And so it's sitting there. And both Sam and I did see it, and then there's the fin flash and the whole thing, and then it sunk and went away.
Wow.
We ejected in the middle of a naval exercise. There were 8 ships and 6 helos in the air, just because we jumped out in the middle of them. And within a couple of minutes, 2 helos came over and grabbed us. We took off at 11 a.m. We ejected at 11:40. We were in a helicopter by 12. It was almost like a planned event. And then
Ejectex.
Yeah, Ejectex. And then there were 5 weeks of investigations. Of course, the most terrifying one was the FNAB, where I had to go explain what I did.
Well, so talk to us about that, because obviously things worked out.
So what played out is pilot error.
Okay.
And I explained what had happened, and it was irregardless of the 2 engine stalls and the out of control, nasty put controls in and kept the airplane in a spun condition. And I agree with that. I mean, that's what I did. I mean, there was also negative training. They changed the syllabus. They actually they went and interviewed a whole bunch of people and said, yeah, we got engine stalls all the time. This is always a kind of a tricky maneuver. So they took the 90-degree nose out for several years. And they said we do the on the back one and the 70-degree one, but they took this one out from a training perspective. And they said, look, don't get yourself there. Get the airplane out of the vertical when you can, so it doesn't go to 90 degrees nose up. They took that training video out of circulation forever because it actually trained pilots to do the wrong thing. And I was the high AOA SME in VF-124. I was supposed to be the expert at this stuff. And I told them, I said, this is why I did what I did. And this is why I put the controls in. This is what I saw, and we talked about crew coordination, and the backseater, whoever it is, needs to ask these clarifying questions the whole time. So, but it was pilot error. They did put the engine stall made a material thing, but the MIR came out, the JAG investigation, kind of thing, and it's pretty stressful kind of thing. And then the FNAB, which is where they determine whether you can fly again. But they ultimately said, you can fly, there's a probation period. And so 5 weeks later, I got to go in the air again, and we went out to the Kane MOA, riding with a guy in a back seat, and I said, okay, we're gonna do vertical airspeed. So the first thing I did—
Get back on the horse.
Got back on the horse, and I was terrified. It's like, okay, lock the harness, up we go, and I'm reliving this whole thing. And we go up there, and I don't do anything weird. We get it parked in the vertical, I make sure it's parked in the vertical. And as soon as I just let it go, I'm sitting there going, come on. And the thing did all of its stuff, or everything. And then I'm like, hey, don't touch nothing. It recovered. We flew back home. Okay, I did.
That's it.
I did. That's it. And what's really funny, I really did talk to some guys and go, man, I'm done. I mean, ejection, and I'm done. And they go, hey, Nasty, every Tomcat Admiral that's out there has had an ejection. You'll be fine. And that's right.
So a rite of passage to a Tomcat flag officer.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about your CO tour, because you were flying the D, right?
Yeah.
The squadron had the D.
Yeah.
So what was that airplane all about? I have this much D experience, because the other episode I did was, what if, right? Because I remember I'm in the RAG, and Bill Cross is the class desk at PMA 241. And so he comes down, he's like, hey, everybody, by the time you finish your first tour, we're all going to have Ds. And we're like, yay, right? And then the rest is, thank you, Dick Cheney, and sort of slicing up the baby in different ways. So talk to us about the D versus the A and what capability that brought.
Yeah, so I have about 2,500 hours in the A's. Flew that for my entire Tomcat career except for the CO tour. And I got orders to be F-31 Tomcatters out at Miramar, flying Ds. And so I went to the 101 det at Miramar to learn how to fly the D, and it was mostly differences training.
So how many D squadrons? Do we have 4 at that time?
We had 31, 11, 1, and 2.
Okay.
Yeah, so CAG 2 and CAG 14.
Okay.
Yep. And so I go to learn the airplane, and eye-watering. So they put the 110s in there, the GE 110s. The GE 110 in military power had as much thrust as the TF-30s in afterburner. You could go up and over the top at 220 knots, 220 in maneuvering flaps, right? And so, I mean, unheard of in the Tomcat to be able to go up that slow in the A.
Yeah.
So now you fought, you could fight all the way down. The other thing it would do is you fight all the way down to slow airspeed and then unload, and you got a little bit of vertical airspeed, or unload and get a lot of vertical airspeed and completely put it back up. Because unlike the A, which used to get in a hole, right, you've got yourself in a hole fighting, trying to get out of that hole, it just didn't accelerate. The D, 1 potato, 2 potato, you had speed again and you're back on corner. It was awesome. APG 71 radar and not only a TCS but an IRST, and
infrared search and track.
Yeah, infrared search and track. So you could use the IRST for raid count. So you go to that screen, it wouldn't lock on anything, and it wasn't fused with the radar. But you could, if you have a radar contact out there, you throw the IRST on them and you go, I see 3 airplanes. Or
so did the Rio control that? Who's working the IRST?
Because it went to MFDs. Yeah. Either one of you could control it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the second feature was we went.
Was that true for radar modes too?
Yeah.
So you could select. And what were the modes? It wasn't like track while scan and PD search.
No, you had, I can't even remember now, but you had a lot more.
This was like generations away from the AUG-9.
Correct. Way generations. So AUG-9 and the A, APG 71 and the D, and selectable, and now you had an SMS page now, a storage management system page that you could play with and stuff in the front seat. So we did a little bit of crew coordination sharing in the D, but it generally remained. Rio's got all this stuff. Yeah. Same sort of thing happens in the F-18F.
Okay.
So you have dual functionality, but the Wizzo takes care of stuff, pilot takes care of stuff. And then the last one was the HUD. The HUD that's in the Tomcat D, same one they put in the Super Hornet. Because the functionality of it was awesome. And of course in the A, the HUD in the A was almost unusable except for in the air-to-air mode. And even the landing mode, you turned it off. So much so that I learned how to fly the D. I was not a HUD believer. And you heard about HUD cripples in the A7 and the F-18. That I would turn down the HUD to very faint. It's the primary flight instrument. And in the landing pattern, I would turn that thing down. And then I go, maybe I should try using this HUD a little bit more. So I started trying to fly off the HUD. Oh my God, you instantly control the airplane more finely in all the modes, including the landing mode. Put the symbology on the HUD, and that airplane, the ball would not move. And you could, and it had digital flight controls, DFCS, and so that thing was all connected. And so it took out all of the turkey stuff that the A had in it.
Lineup corrections, the nose isn't wandering around.
Yep, didn't do any of that stuff anymore. So they put all those enhancements in the D, and then of course got rid of it in 2003.
So you're right there when all this entropy was happening of what's happening to the community. You know, you take this awesome airplane with this next generation capability, and we just kind of mute that effect. I was in B squadrons for the rest of my time, so we got the good engine, didn't get the good radar. Lantern, great kick save, great capability. The Rio got busier and busier, and we've documented this a number of times on the channel. But what was your sense with your D experience in terms of just how badly, and I say badly just because I'm pro Tomcat, but aviation leadership, the Pentagon, DOD, fong that away?
When I was at Miramar, and I can't remember, might have been XO, we all, went into the auditorium and got a brief on Tomcat 21. Like, absolutely, the D is what the whole Tomcat thing's going to be. We're going to, make the whole Tomcat fleet Ds now. Like, yes, everybody's pumping their arms. Just like you said at the beginning, yep, absolutely. Put the lantern on it, and we were bombing with it. Starting in the mid-90s when I was in VF1, we first started dropping bombs, and then in 31, we really went to town when I was skipper, and of course all the squadrons, the whole community is now using the lantern to bomb, and it was the best bomber in the Navy. Epic. So yeah, you want this airplane now, it is truly a strike fighter, lantern pod, the whole thing. Capability we had, the range, right idea. And then of course to make the decision, I think Black Nathan was in the Pentagon at the time, and they made the decision to do that, and I thought it was the wrong decision. We still make those kind of decisions in the Pentagon. I understand why they're made. I don't think we do it very well, because we always leave a very capable platform and jump to an extremely less capable platform that we have to catch up to the previous one.
Okay.
The example I'll give you is the last deployment of the Tomcat was 2003. On the East Coast. I think Bill Sizemore was the CAG. And I'm now the readiness guy for Air Pac, the N-40. And we do the first deployment of Super Hornets off the West Coast in about 2004.
It was 2002. That's when I got to Nav Air. I was working in 265. Okay. It was Zoil, Penfield, on Lincoln. That was 2002.
When I was the N-40, they deployed with no weapons clearances. So I think it was 14 and 41 go off the West Coast, and they're deployed, and they have no weapons clearances. They can't drop, they can't shoot the gun. But the clearances are rolling, because of your work, the clearances are rolling in like 2 a week. So we're shooting clearances out to the squadrons. Okay, you can shoot the gun now. You can drop Blue Death. You can Mark 25 Blue practice bombs. You can drop 500 pounders. Now you can drop 1,000 pounders. I mean, we're just print and press, throwing clearances out.
But had the bubble gone up in the meantime,
no capability.
We're hung out. Yeah.
And doesn't go as far as Tomcat.
Right.
And it doesn't carry the lantern pod, which was very precise. It carries
barely
an AT
goes
clear.
supersonic at sea level.
It can't go supersonic with anything on it.
I was being generous.
And it was all these, what did we do? Why did we do that? We still continue to do that. So when you're making an argument at the Pentagon for, things like getting rid of a legacy airplane, the metrics are typically around maintenance man hours per flight hour, cost to sustain the airplanes. We've actually done some studies, and it turns out that beyond, if you're the average age of your fleet is past 10 years, so you're sustaining an average age of the fleet past 10 years, especially gets older, the sustainment costs start to go up, and they start to go up exponentially. So it's a truism, and it's all the airplanes we've ever flown, Air Force, Navy, and stuff. So oftentimes when we're looking to justify, we'll use those sustainment costs as justification. And it's a truism. If you keep your fleet at a younger age, less than 10 years, average age less than 10 years, your sustainment costs remain relatively flat. But the other phenomenon that the Pentagon does, which I've been railing against as the N98, as the N9, is when we decide to go to a new airplane, we stop funding and just get rid of the old airplane. But there's still a gap before it shows up. So we jump to the bright, shiny object, and we just let this one go foul. And it's, no, you need to keep this thing while you're getting to the new airplane, whatever it is. So A7 F4 to the F-14. And the capability of the F-14 in the beginning days got people in the other ones going, why are we doing this? You got this capability over here. A7 F-14 to the F-18, same thing. And then, the dual role, F-18 came up really fast. But you still have viable Tomcats. And so the light attack guys would always bitch about the Hornet that it couldn't do, right? In the process of modifying the air wing away from Tomcats and A6s, A7s, the range capability of our air wing came way, way, way down. And so now what you see is this very hard push to get back to the range capabilities we had when we had the A6 and the Tomcat in the air wing. Where you could go 1,000-mile radius, and the new metrics are about that, to get back to that so we can actually take the fight to the places we need to fight. And I think that, I'm very active at railing against this, the way that we go to the next airplane, we have to fix that phenomenon so we don't end up in a place where we're trying to fix.
Well, is it fixable, right? This is the topic of procurement reform. You've been inside the where that's happening as N98 and also the other places where you've been both on the operational side and you've done all the hard jobs in between the cool jobs. And so you're sort of specially tailored to solve this.
The solution is to set requirements to what you truly value. I want an airplane that has the same range as a Tomcat. I'm going to replace a Tomcat. It has to have the same range. Let's say it has to be able to carry the same weapons. I want a digital backbone in the airplane so I can do future software stuff. If you set those kind of requirements and you do it correctly, you don't lose the capability between the two platforms.
The Hornet program did not do that, right? We punted on range, just so we punted on speed. So suddenly the carrier area of effectiveness went from, I'm just spitballing, 1,000 to 500 miles, right? And so end cycle lengths went from 1 + 45 to 1 + 30 with a 1 hour cycle at the beginning and end of the day. And this is because the Hornets had the same fuel flow as the Tomcat, but it started with 6,000 less pounds.
When you design the airplane against what N98 says are the requirements, when you're going to go replace them, do an analysis of alternatives, it ends up in a request for proposals, it ends up in competing designs from industry, you have a set of requirements. And those requirements, when you put them together, result in an F-18 or a Super Hornet. When you put them all together, so they're compromises.
Yeah.
Going to make it a carrier airplane, and we don't want the Spock factor to be over 1.2.
But to be cynical about it, sometimes those compromises are reverse engineering what the budget supports.
When you first start, you do have a sense of what you have for a budget, but you're also developing the budget. So you actually have to go in and say, hey, this design that we've come up with, it's going to cost this much, we need this much money to build and produce this thing. Then you start arguing about cost. Then trades start to come in if they're tradable from a cost perspective. Okay, and they'll say, no, we don't need that kind of, and usually the basics of the size of the airplane don't change because the basic design has been decided on. When they come in and they look at it and they say, yes, you've met all the requirements that we want, that's the best design, we select that design, and we're funding that design to be finished in the engineering design, built and then produced and start to be produced in those things. So it's just slightly off. However, that design to get on a carrier is a compromised design. So you don't get to have all that you want, and so some things get traded away. And one of the things that got traded away from, this dual mode strike fighter called the F-18 was range. So it turned out to be a certain size, basis, requirement for a carrier that ended up this way with these weapon systems capabilities, which were above the current single mission airplanes. Now it could do both things, but since it could do both things and they wanted a certain size, somehow it was in the requirements package, it ended up a shorter ranged airplane.
Okay.
And then of course, as with anything in the Pentagon, you can prove that it'll work. You say, well, we're refueling. And we got access to, refueling airplanes. We did not have the pure threat that we have today. The way that we fight is we'd roll back the IADs and then get in. So refueling was always an option and was not a constraint. In the future fight, as we look to the west, actually getting in there is going to be a constraint, hence the longer range. And so what's happened is the air wing that evolved into F-18s from F-14s was extremely suitable for any spectrum of warfight because of what they could do in the end game. We didn't have an anti-access sort of and that's I hate to use that term, it's not true. We didn't have as hard a problem to get in as we do now.
Okay.
And when we looked at the future fight with a peer competitor, the opportunity to get in is going to be really hard. We can't even get close enough to use the air wing. And so you can't refuel on the way in there unless you have a longer ranged strike fighter with longer ranged weapons, and you can refuel in an area of sanctuary, and that system can continue to go deeper than it could before.
Well, Nasty, it's been a long time coming to have you on the channel. I'm glad we were finally able to do it.
Thanks, Mooch.
Thank you for more than 3 decades of service. When you talk about the lessons, a lot of them were done on your watch, so thank you for that, and we look forward to seeing you in Annapolis very soon.
That sounds good, and I just want to tell you and your audience, I'm so humbled and honored to have been able to have the opportunity to do all those awesome operational tours, to be able to go back to the Pentagon. I have 5 tours there, and take that back and try to make that work. Go back to sea, go to the Pentagon. I mean, I'm really blessed to have the ability to, to put my opinion into the mix and to say, hey, this is what we ought to go do based on experience, both at the Pentagon and at sea. So I really appreciate it.
All right, that'll do it for this episode. If you're not a subscriber, hit the button, become one. If you'd like to help support the channel, do the super thanks or become a patron at patreon.com/WardCarroll. And for Nasty and Mooch, look forward to talking to you again very soon. Goodbye from Reno and the Nugget.